I think these questions are really, really interesting. It's very, very important. And I want to talk a little bit about my position being a museum director and what the museum has been, can be, and want to be, you know, like. And let us start with the idea of the modern museum. It's like it came along in the late 20th century when you had this idea in the 19th century about the museum as a national academic institution that was showing up power in one way or another. It's like you had these academies all over Europe, and the museum had a treasure collection. Modernism, as we know, in the late 19th century, started to change the concept of what I very shortly want to call determinism. I mean, determinism was that, well, you are not going to transgress who you are. You belong to a class, you belong to a gender, you belong to a certain place in the society, and there would be no chance to change that. The good thing with the modern project, with modernism, was that, and now I make a little funny, how do you say, liknelse, but when Oscar Wilde in the late 19th century said that to be a dandy is not about what I have, it is about what I am. So anyone could be, you know, like a dandy. And if you think about this, and when Nietzsche, for example, declared the death of God, he said that, okay, it's us instead, the human being, the single individual that is stepping, and we can change our world where we are going. And Freud, of course, was talking about the differences about this identity, this. And we saw this shift then. It's like where the museum in the, let's say, in New York, MoMA in the 1920s and 1930s, started to collect and build up a collection from this point of view. It's like it was not so much about that, oh, I had a military coup in Turkey, and now I bring back the treasures to the museum. Or, I mean, it was not showing the community or the culture, the powerful of the nation that it was in the 19th century. There was another idea. It was another idea of universalism. It was an idea of to create a new language. And by creating a new language, we could join together in a global, universal community. To get rid of the old deterministic, get rid of the old prejudices that were, and we should become a new human being, basically. Create a new society with a new policy. So the modern project was very much about, had this utopian value, and it meant good. I mean, it really meant good that we should break free from the old past. But if we now start to think about what happened really, it's like, well, it was about looking for the similarities, not about the differences. The whole modern project in the beginning of the 20th century was that it's like to find a common good, you know, like that we can share the common good. Hopefully share the same language, share the same opinions, etc., etc. And we saw how this modern project led us to two big systems in the world in the 20th century. We had the capitalistic system, and we had the Soviet communist system that both talked about, you know, like the same thing, but from two different angles. It's like, so modernism and the modern project was about exclusion. It was not about inclusion. Everything that didn't fit into this middleman. I still remember traveling to Marseille and to Le Corbusier's Unité d'Abolition. where he built this huge living machine. And he created all the apartments and everything from the standard human being that is 171. I'm 191, so it was very difficult when I should sit down on a toilet stool and you know, like, but I mean, it went so far that, okay, here we have the middle. Here we have 171 centimeters tall is the standard human being. And of course, us that are not 171, I mean, what should we do? You know, like, I mean, that is a funny comment. The more tragic comment is what we saw during the 1930s when minorities of different kinds were persecuted and followed, and we had the same in Sweden as we had everywhere in the world, basically. That let's get away with that things that doesn't fit in, you know, like. And what we saw after the Second World War, when the sort of first modernist democratic museum wonder started to happen, was that museums in New York, Paris, London, well, Stockholm, more or less had the same collection. That should be like a couple of Matisse, a couple of Picassos, a couple of that, a couple of that, a couple of that. That was the standard, you know, like, what is a modern museum? Oh, it should have this and this and that in the collection. It was all about, how do you say, the sameness. That was the importance, to show that I am as good in Stockholm as people in New York, you know, like, we can collect Picasso here as much as in New York, you know, like, so the difference was not there. And as you understand, I mean, this way of thinking became narrower and narrower, you know, like, where were the other? When I had art history in the late 1970s, and I had the major book, Constant by Jansson, 450 pages, from cave paintings until Andy Warhol. 450 pages, one woman artist, Georgia O'Keeffe. I was 19 years old. Oh, there's no women in art history. I mean, this is the authority says so, you know, like, but it took me at least like 5, 6, 8 years to understand that there were actually, like, there were female artists there, you know, like, but this way of controlling the modernist paradigm, the idea of using art as a power tool to oppress things that doesn't fit in from the white wasp man that has a lot of money or lots of power. It's like, that was the aim. If I want to be a little bit critical that I am, but at least it became like, it ended up like this. It's like, but the good thing, as I see it, starts and happens in the 1970s and in the 1980s, when lots of us were starting to criticize this modern idea that well, I mean, the world doesn't look like that. There are women. There are, like, black artists. There are Roma artists. There are people from all over. It's like, and it's maybe not the sameness that is the most important. It's the difference, you know. What can I learn from other people? And I remember I was teaching quite a lot in the 80s in art schools, and the students came and said, oh, I want to go to New York and I want to make success. It's like, how should I do it? Well, I didn't know. It's like, oh, I can do exactly what they do. They say, no, I'm as good as them. You know, like, no, I said, it's like, I don't think that this is the right strategy. It's like, if you go there and you do the same as they are doing, you take something from them. You know, they don't want that. It's better that you come there and give them something, you know, that they don't have. And I think that idea of instead of reducing, you are adding things, you know, like, and it has endless possibilities. There's no end to adding. We can't get enough, you know, like, I think that this is very important. The idea of transgression, the idea of the avant-garde, if you want, is still there, in the sense of that we can't get enough. And instead of, you know, see the sameness, you see the difference. But how to use these ideas into a museum, for example. And I've been many years, also when I was a critic, and especially now when I came here to Malmö, I've been thinking of this almost every day. And I sort of, how can I, as a white middle-class person, represent anyone else but me? You know, it's like, I can't. I can be honest and say I can't, but I can create a room where everybody can meet and talk and discuss and change opinions, and not necessarily need to agree on everything. I mean, there is this horrible, and now I'm being critical against Swedish mentality. There is this horrible idea that we all should end up in a consensus, you know, like that in the end of the day, we should all sit here in this group and we should think the same. Isn't that an awful thought? I mean, it's like, but allow, you know, us to think differently, you know, like, and this is the way I think that not only me, but those colleagues of mine that are interested in these questions, we think and we talk about this a lot. I mean, it's like, to create an atmosphere in a museum or in a space, it's like, where it's not about me representing, me saying this is the best, this is the good. It's just to try to get people together. And then something is happening in between these meetings. And I'm very influenced of the thinking of let's say, Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, where we are talking about mediators in the society today. It's like that we are jumping on different islands all the time. And as I remember the first workshop, I mentioned Paul Gilroy, my ex-huge hero, where he is talking about truth is not laying in roots, R-O-O-T-S. Truth is within the roots, R-O-U-T-E-S. The travels where we pass, we meet people, and we have a consensus for a while, and then it's like, oh, well, I was wrong, I did have new experiences, and this can, you know, like an endless flow of questions and answers. And of course, most of us can't live with that we don't have a stable black and white, right or wrong, somebody to hold on. So in that sense, I think that visual arts and culture still today has a very radical and has a very strong meaning that can be a little bit dangerous to society. And I hope that more of the institutions, my 20 minutes is soon gone, I see it on you.
I was listening.
I was on a one-day roundtable discussion 2 weeks ago about museums and diversity, and I was a guy from the Swedish Church that is the editor of the Swedish Church magazine, and he was very critical to the Swedish Church. He said it's like, oh, we have all these churches and cathedrals in this country, but they're totally empty. It's like no one goes there. It's like, and in the message, it's the place where we should meet. It's like, and why is that? Well, I mean, it's like they're not allowing in any other religion. That's what the church stands for. It's like, so, we had a beautiful and interesting discussion. It's like that. Where are those hinders? Where are those borders where change can't happen? You know, like, and at the same roundtable, somebody actually from this very radical Swedish organization, Expo, that is the watchtower of the right extremists in Sweden. He said, it's like, oh, I have a simple solution to you. you sack half of your staff, and then you bring in, you know, like diverse. And I said, no, I can't. It's like the law says I can't. Yes, exactly. The law says it. You know, like. So what are those borders in society? It's not, you know, like. I think this is very important for us to really see where the borders are, for example. And we can only do that by let people meet and discuss, and not hope that it will end in a consensus. Because I'm very afraid that this is the bad side of the modern project, the modernist idea that we do all the same. It doesn't matter where we come from. It's a beautiful thought. It doesn't matter where we come from. We all love each other. But how boring. It's like, I mean, it's like, it's a big narcissism. And I could go into psychological discussion about the selfies and the narcissistic society that we're living in, and that we self-reflect us. We choose, you know, what we want because we see myself into the other, you know, like, and that is, again, the similarity of the sameness. Well, I stop there. Thank you.